given all of the restrictions that are still in place, and you were telling us yourself that you're actually right now stuck in Sydney, which is not a bad place to be stuck in, but you are. What are you seeing in terms of demand now with the Lunar New Year?
Well, demand is, of course, very poor because of all the restrictions, which I think will continue for some time to come. Because governments have realized that in the Asia region, they have been rather successful in containing and controlling the virus, relatively speaking. Whereas those places that have pursued a less risk-averse policy are paying the price in terms of being overcome by the spread of the virus. So I think these restrictions will continue for a long time. It's not only the Lunar New Year season has been affected, but also Christmas and New Year, because the resurgence in the virus and the spread of the mutant forms started taking place from early December.
You have 14 members in your association. Who are the biggest hit, especially considering that perhaps we do have domestic demand in places like China, but other markets don't necessarily have those domestic routes?
I think everyone is badly hit because this is a crisis which is affecting supply. Airlines are not allowed to fly freely. There are a lot of border restrictions which are also affecting the demand side of the equation. So everyone is affected. I suppose those who have a higher reliance on cargo doing better. Because demand for cargo has actually shot up, because of the need for speedier delivery of merchandise. And those with domestic markets, which are under control as far as the virus is concerned, are also faring a bit better than airlines that are, completely dependent on international travel.
We've had the news today that Etihad is the first airline to have a fully vaccinated crew operating. Is it your expectation that that's going to become an industry standard?
In Singapore, the Singapore government has decided that aviation workers are frontline workers, and so they will also have some priority in terms of the vaccination program. But we are yet to see, other countries follow suit. But of course, prioritization has always been based on the most vulnerable. So we have to see how governments react to this.
Yeah, going ahead also, we have Qantas stating already that it's going to have a no jab, no fly policy. Can you see that there might be the potential for some safety and reputational risks for any airlines that don't do this?
Well, as far as I understand it, vaccination works in the way that it immunizes individuals from falling sick to the virus. So far, the transmissibility factor has not been proven. Whether a traveler who has been vaccinated is less infectious. So I think how vaccination should work is that the majority of the population that is receiving foreign visitors should be immunized so that they do not have to fear the risk of imported cases.
We are seeing some different initiatives when it comes to vaccinations and testing, the digital passports. IATA has just released one, the IATA Travel Pass. How do you feel about those apps and tracking that information for passengers?
Well, I think the whole industry is working towards this end, because I think when travel returns, travel consumers will expect to have contactless and seamless travel. So there are many requirements now, and each place has got its own requirements and formats for those requirements, like testing and vaccination and things like that. So how do you make sense of all this for travelers? How do you give them a way in which they can go and get themselves tested at authenticated test centers? How these formats of testing certificates and vaccination certificates standardized, and transmitted securely to travelers, and of course, most importantly, how can then you use this certification to gain access to borders? So I think the smart solution is probably the only way to do it, but of course, it requires a lot of multilateral agreement, on standardizing the formats and making it
Right.
easy. Yeah.
There's been a lot of expectations and hopes that perhaps we could see travel bubbles, whether it's from New Zealand to Australia or Hong Kong to Singapore. And of course, these schemes have to be shut off from time to time because we have seen surging infections. Now, with the new variants of virus as well, do you hold out any expectation that these bubbles could actually be established? And could they provide some meaningful support until everybody's vaccinated?
Yes, I think travel bubbles will return, but what is key is for the vaccination program, to proceed faster, so that the majority of the world's populations are vaccinated. At the moment, the vaccination program is such that the developed world will all be done and dusted by the end of the year, but many emerging markets, developing countries are on a very slow road to achieve the same result. So we need to speed this up, because economic recovery and travel recovery cannot just happen in the developed world. For travel to really pick up, you need more places, to be immunized.